Richard Hart the other day. So, I always talk about like decoding his tweets and how fun it is and everything. Well, maybe this one is more simple than I realized. But on the 21st here, so almost 6 days ago now, I think it was last Wednesday, he tweeted asking whether Pulse is decorrelated from ETH and the rest of the market. So he basically just put up a screenshot from Go Pulse with all the different prices, whatever they were that day. I think they were pretty similar to where we're at right now. And he just said like decorrelated, or I forget what he said. It was just like decorrelated ? My question is, what was his intent tweeting that then at that time? I think Pulse was like slightly pumping at the moment, but I mean, it's not like the rest of the market was like tanking or anything. So I wasn't quite sure what he meant. But what was his point tweeting that, do you think, Ewok? And do you think that we are decorrelated from the rest of the market right now, or can we be if not? And if so, on what time frames are we talking? Because I think when people get into some of these arguments about correlation, they just talk about like short time frames that don't make any sense. It's usually a longer time frame thing that we're talking about, and you can really choose any chart and any time frame to pretend that something looks the way that you want it to, even with correlation like that. So, what did you make of his tweet? I thought it came at a curious time. Maybe I'm just dumb, but I couldn't tell what he meant by it.
Yeah, I didn't really know either. I mean, one of the famous tweets from Richard is always, the floor is lava type things. And usually when Hex or Pulse or whatever may be pumping and everything else is down. But that really wasn't the case, I don't think, when that went off. So on hexfire.io, thanks to Crispy Man, here's the correlation chart. So, you're looking at Pulse even to Ethereum, and it's 0.21% correlated. So, 20.21% of the liquidity, I guess, is bonded in a way, which I even think that's a little high, but yeah. So your point is maybe it's 21%, maybe it's not 0.21. Either way, here's the correlation chart, and it's totally Pulse and Bitcoin are totally it's negative. So when you see that number being negative, it's very uncorrelated. So it's the same Pulse with a lot of things, with BTC, with the dollar, NASDAQ, those are all negative. Whereas, you look at Bitcoin and it's like correlated almost 90% to Ethereum. So when it moves, Ethereum moves right along with it. And that's, obviously that ties back to Hart's Law, right? Because most of the pairs are tied that heavy together. So much of the volume is BTC to ETH and trading like that. So, yeah, it was strange. I don't understand. At the time, I didn't see anything crazy moving. Maybe there was a little pump that I didn't notice. But I think it's going to be a lot more obvious as we get to a pullback. To see which things are running and maybe which are decorrelated at that time. And maybe he was just kind of breaking out that crystal ball there to give us a foreshadowing of what could possibly be to come.
That's exactly what my point was just going to be, and Patrick kind of said it here too. But what you just said, Ewok, I was thinking that, like, especially with what we've seen from these other wallet entities this week, and thinking that maybe a time frame may be pushed back as far as like those funds being interested in entering the market or anything. That tweet from Richard could have been like the setup for what may be to come here. You know what I mean? That we are seeing BTC fly right now. We haven't seen PulseChain fly right behind it. Necessarily. And again, ETH is still catching up to it too a little bit. But, is it that when BTC does that pullback that we talked about at the top of the show, that one viewer said there's no way we're going back to 39K. When we do go back to 39K or somewhere around that area, is that when we see PulseChain pump, because that's exactly what I think is being set up for here. I think we're being set up for Bitcoin to come crashing back down over the course of a couple of months. And then not only will we see alts fly, I think that will provide like a bigger alt season. And I think the PulseChain will be a huge part of that at that time. Do you think maybe that's what he was maybe intimating? Because that's what I think might be happening here.
Yeah, it's possible. Again, I mean, he's on a different level of thinking than a lot of us. So I'm not sure exactly where he was headed with it, but it could be. Now, I really maybe a good segment into this alt season discussion, but um, I don't, I still don't see when BTC pulls back, we're going to have little gains, but it's not going to be our big alt season. I think people are getting it really confused. So,
Well, let's table that for just a second here, because yeah, that I did have that question purposely right after this part. Let me ask you this real quick before we get into that. So Patrick here says Hex pump and top. Is that what it says? And top up in a different timing than the rest of the crypto market alt season bull run 2021. Yeah, it was different timing in 2021. Maybe the same for PulseChain 24, 25. I mean, yeah, that's on a longer time horizon, but yes, I mean, we did see, for anybody that wasn't around at the time, Hex pretty much topped out in September of 2021, and then we saw Bitcoin hit its second double top. It had a lot of alts hit new all-time highs in November of 2021. So we did see Hex kind of front run it. And yeah, I mean, that's only about a 60-day difference or so, as far as using those time markers we are. But do you think we could see something like that again, Ewok, where it just eventually here, like we're talking end of bull market stuff, we see this ecosystem top off like way before Bitcoin's done, or maybe way after it, actually, just either way, not matching up exactly with Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's decorrelated in that sense where people start exiting positions in Bitcoin, and they've taken some profits. They want to go back on risk on a lot of different things and get that final gains. And I think that's what we saw with Hex in the last cycle. Is it was such a so the first time Hex or the first time Bitcoin topped was in April, I believe, and then had a pullback, and that's when the Hex run kind of started from April into September, and then it topped out in September. And then, like I said, there was a lot of profit taken at that point because it started to come back down. We had started having sacrifice phases, and then we had that weird candle that put the Bitcoin at the double top and went to 69K.
Nice.
I don't know that we'll have that double top again. I think because of the pump so early this time and it being a larger pump, don't know that we'll get to double top. But who's to say what entity doesn't say, well, we're going to pump this one last time and get what we can out of it. And because there are some larger entities now that will be pumping price to take some more profits at the end. So kind of got to watch out for that too. Hard to say.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, but it was a little bit like that last time. I don't think we're going to see like a double top scenario again with Bitcoin. I think that was probably unique to the last cycle. But yeah, we'll see how Hex and the PulseChain ecosystem kind of decorrelates itself.